All right, let's get right into it. We're tackling a pretty provocative question today, one that sits at this uncomfortable crossroads of morality and genetics. Does infidelity run in the family? I mean, could a parent's choices literally be written into their child's DNA? Let's dive in and find out.
You know, for centuries, the way we've looked at infidelity is, well, it's pretty straightforward, right? We see it as a purely moral failing, a conscious choice. It's all about character, about willpower. Simple.
But what if it's more complicated than that? What if there's something else at play? Like an ancient script, a biological whisper that's influencing this really personal behavior? What if this isn't just in our heads, but it's actually in our blood?
And this number? Wow. This is where the story gets really interesting, because modern science is starting to point to a pretty shocking reality. There's a 40 to 60% chance that a tendency towards things like promiscuity and cheating can be passed down. We're talking about a biological legacy. This isn't just some old wives' tale anymore. This is a serious scientific question.
Now, this whole idea flies right in the face of a belief we've held for a long, long time, the blank slate theory. You know, the idea that we're born totally empty and our environment just writes our story for us. But there's this field called behavioral genetics that's completely rewriting that script. It's showing us that, yep, our genes, our very nature, play a huge role in who we are and the tendencies we have. So where's the proof for all this?
Okay, so let's get into the first piece of hard evidence. Let's see how scientists are trying to untangle this super complex web of nature versus nurture. And the answer, it turns out, lies with twins. So there was this landmark study from the University of Queensland, led by a researcher named Dr. Brendan Ziich. They looked at over 7,000 twins, and they had one really clear goal: to figure out how much of infidelity is because of genes and how much is because of how you were raised. And the way they did this was just brilliant in its simplicity. They compared two groups. First, you've got identical twins. They share 100% of their DNA. Then you have fraternal twins who share about 50%, just like any other brother or sister. And the results? They were staggering. Identical twins showed this remarkably similar tendency to cheat. If one did, the other was highly likely to as well, even if they grew up in totally different homes.
So here's the bottom line. The researchers came to a really definitive conclusion. A huge chunk, we're talking between 40 and 60% of the tendency to be unfaithful is directly influenced by our genes. But which genes are we even talking about?
All right, now we're going to dig a little deeper. Let's peel back the layers and actually look at the biological suspects, the specific genes and chemicals that science has kind of zeroed in on as the potential culprits here.
Okay, meet suspect number one, a gene called DRD4. It's got this nickname, the thrill-seeking gene. Now, this gene is all tied up with our brain's dopamine receptors. And you know dopamine, it's that pleasure chemical that makes us feel good. The thing is, certain variations of this gene can make a person's brain less sensitive to it. So how does this actually work? Well, imagine you have this specific gene variation. It means your brain is less responsive to those normal hits of dopamine. So while one person might get that feel-good rush from, a quiet night at home with their partner, this person doesn't. They need a much bigger stimulus, more risk, more novelty, just to feel the same level of pleasure. Now, this doesn't force them to cheat, but you can see how it creates this powerful genetic push in that direction. But wait, the story doesn't end with just thrill-seeking. There's another piece to this puzzle, and it's just as important. It's not only about chasing novelty, it's also about our very capacity for emotional bonding. And this is where a hormone called vasopressin comes in. It's super important for creating those feelings of emotional attachment, especially in men. Now here's the crazy part. The source material explains that a lifestyle with multiple partners can actually make the brain's receptors for this hormone less sensitive. And, get this trait, this change, can actually be passed on. It's a process that allows a father's lifestyle to essentially silence this bonding gene in the DNA he passes down to his son. And that brings us to maybe the most surprising twist in this entire story, the science of epigenetics. This is the how. This is the mechanism that explains how a parent's actual behavior can leave a physical mark on their child's DNA. I know what you're thinking. A skeptic would rightly ask, how is that even possible? How can something you do with your body, what scientists call the soma, actually change the genetic code in your sperm, the germline? For the longest time, science basically said, no way, that's impossible. Well, the answer seems to lie in these incredible little things called exosomes.
The best way to think of them is like the body's own internal delivery service. They're these tiny packages that can pick up genetic information, like RNA, from cells all over your body and deliver it to other cells, including sperm. And yeah, research has actually shown this happening, data being transferred from the body right into the germline.
So what's the big takeaway here? It means a parent's actions and the biological changes they cause can literally get packaged up by these exosomes and delivered to their sperm. And what that does in essence is create a software update for their child's DNA. It's like programming them with a message that says, hey, loyalty is going to be tough and satisfaction comes from constant change.
Okay, wow. This is some heavy stuff, right? The science gives us the what and the how, but it leaves us with the biggest question of all: what do we do about it? If all this is true, are we just prisoners of our own biology? Is our destiny already written in our DNA?
I mean, that's the ultimate question, isn't it? After seeing all this evidence for a genetic link, it's so easy to feel kind of helpless. But the answer, according to both modern science and the wisdom in our source material, is a resounding no.
You know, the source material we're looking at argues this is not a new problem at all. In fact, the ancient wisdom traditions have been warning about the downstream effects of our actions for thousands of years. It points to this verse from the Quran, for example, and suggests that it's not just a moral command, but a kind of genetic wisdom. It's a warning that this evil way isn't just about society, but about preventing a kind of genetic time bomb that can hurt generations to come.
And this is probably the most important thing to remember. This is not about genetic determinism. Your genes are not stone tablets dictating your fate. A much better way to think of them is like switches. They can be turned on and they can be turned off. So at the end of the day, you're faced with a fundamental choice. You can look at your genetic inheritance as a predetermined path, which kind of makes you a prisoner of your biology. Or you can see it as an opportunity, a challenge that you, with your own free will, have the power to overcome. You can be the master of your biology, not its slave.
And the amazing thing is, you are not powerless in this fight. Science gives us this incredible concept called neuroplasticity. It's the proven ability of your brain to literally rewire itself based on your thoughts and actions. Through self-control, by changing your environment, you can alter your brain's structure. And in a very similar way, the spiritual idea of sincere repentance and real behavioral change is seen as the key to switching off those dangerous genetic expressions.
So, if you've ever felt that maybe your parents' mistakes are running in your blood, remember this. It might be your challenge, but it is not your destiny. You have the choice. You have the tools. So the final question is, will you be the one to break the chain? Will you be the first link that changes your family's lineage for the better?